Hey everyone, welcome to the F Podcast. I'm your host, Gayu Lewis, a licensed menopause coach, and I'm super excited to have you join us today. Our podcast is all about supporting women through menopause and beyond, through confidence and empowerment. Today, I have an awesome guest joining us. Meet Mariam Yassin. Mariam is the founder of the brand Botox, a creative content agency that specializes in branding and social media solutions. She's supporting businesses, celebrities, and thought leaders across the region in elevating their online presence. Mariam also has a strong background in the wellness space. She's pioneered the well-being and healthy lifestyle arena even before it became a trend, and has been featured in media over the years for her achievements in the field, including the Harper's Bazaar, Bloomsburg, W Magazine, and more. Last but not the least, Mariam is a mother of 3 beautiful children. She's here to share her wisdom on aligning with our natural menstrual cycles can make a huge difference in our lives. We are going to dive into what menstrual cycle syncing is, how it can benefit us, and some practical tips to get started. We also chat about how women dealing with irregular cycles during menopause can use these techniques, and even how postmenopausal women can sync with the moon for some added balance and harmony. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's jump into this fascinating conversation with Mariam. I know you're going to love this conversation as much as I'm going to do it. Hi, Mariam.
Hi.
Welcome to the F Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited. Like I said, it's my first podcast that I'm doing, and I'm happy to start it with you.
Yeah, I'm so honored. Thank you so much.
Like I mentioned, I had attended Mariam's session some time ago with Female Fusion, and it made such a big difference in my life. And that's why I said I wanted to start this podcast with you so that we can actually make an impact in other people's life, especially the menopausal women.
Yeah, thank you so much for that feedback. I think that for me, my well-being journey has been about myself, how to live better, how to feel better, how to kind of exist naturally as possible, whether it comes to beauty or nutrition or whatever. And I always like to give back in that way. So I think that's so important for us to share, like even if, sharing, especially when it comes to women's concerns and health and well-being, I feel like this topic in particular, until recently wasn't really discussed, or it was kind of taboo. Even the subject of menopause has been quite taboo, and whether we like it or not, we're all gonna go through it eventually. And
Totally.
for me, I've just come into my 40s, so I feel like perimenopause is something that's approaching, and educating myself on it, and also sharing with others, learning from others. It's a great way to create the community and build on this, but also break through those taboos or the kind of fear or judgment around it. So I'm happy that I can share a little bit today.
Great. Like I said, I also I turned 40 recently, and one of the main reasons that I got into whole menopause coaching was because there's so much question marks that women have in understanding the change that they're going to go through, and sometimes not able to put a finger to, oh, this is perimenopause,
Yeah.
certain symptoms. So that's the reason that I started F Coach, and I'm happy.
Yeah, amazing. It's a great what you do. I think, there should be more of this, and you start it and you see how, it has a ripple effect. So hats off to you.
Thank you. Talking about cycle syncing, I'm not sure if many of us actually know about cycle syncing. Can you explain what menstrual cycle syncing is and its historical or cultural significance or reference?
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, I always like to explore myself in different ways, and that my journey into kind of the wellness world started when I was young. I was like 24. Normally people will start getting into more of this in the later years, like maybe if you have a life crisis or whatever. But for me, I feel like it was preponed and I went through it earlier. But what's been so fascinating is understanding the mind-body connection, understanding my subconscious mind. So I quickly dove into hypnosis and hypnotherapy. So I'm trained in that. I'm also trained in lots of behavioral therapy techniques. And over the years, I was sharing and supporting so many people, but also teaching I was traveling across the region. So I was this like young woman, sharing all these radical ideas at that time, because now they're quite common and people have embraced them, such as meditation and yoga. Like almost everyone understands how effective they are. Yeah. But at that time, it was just like, I had people much older than me attending my classes as well. And, as a young woman, sharing with much older people with experience, and, they have a lot more kind of life situations that have happened, It was really interesting dynamic, but it was so beautiful. So I think I've been like learning about myself in different ways. So it started about the mind, and then it went into kind of understanding like how can I, improve myself through my physical health. So I had children. So I had 3 children in a row in my late 20s and early 30s. So it was about, okay, how can I be as healthy as possible? So it was like nutrition. I was vegan for a while. I experimented with different things, but also toxic-free living. Okay. So that's when I had a wake-up call. I was like, oh my God, everything we put on our body and everything that's around us is like toxic, So it was like shocking. So that was a big wake-up call for me. So I started sharing on that level. I had a blog and I eventually had a YouTube channel. So I've always liked to share whatever I'm learning, because I feel like that's the best way to kind of empower others. Sure. And it's like good karma in a way, So then, I've had, lots of ups and downs in my life, but I think a couple of years ago, I sort of had another wake-up call, especially after I had my divorce. So I have kids, I had a family, but we decided to split. And that was another kind of deep introspective period in my life. And then I had a realization. I was studying like what makes a healthy relationship, because I think like, we all have a reference of our parents and maybe whoever is around us, but how to define a healthy relationship was like something I had to figure out. Like no one really taught me that. And my parents had their own issues as well. So in deep diving into that, I realized that I was operating a lot out of my masculine side, which meant that, we have different energies. Both men and women have feminine and masculine. But for me, I was heavy. Until now, I kind of have to pull myself back into my feminine. It's not just about the appearance. You can look so feminine, but actually act and behave so masculine energetically. So what does that mean? It means that, I was very defensive, like very angry, like I had to prove myself all the time, quite competitive with like, men in general, I want to show that I'm better than you, or like I can do what you can. It's really strange when you like say it out loud, but like, I think that was another kind of thing that I had to realize about myself. And then I was like, wait, do I really want to be masculine? How is this serving me? If I just like had a failed marriage, I think there's something I need to work on as well. You can't blame everybody else. There's things you got to put in to do the work. So that's when I decided that I need to get more in touch with my body as a woman. What does it mean to be feminine? How can I embrace this? So how can I become powerful as a woman, as opposed to being powerful as a fake man? So that got me started into understanding my cycle. Of course, you learn about having your period when you're young, or your mom or whoever is around you in school. They give you some education about it, but it's just about the menstrual part, the menstruation, and nothing else.
True.
So there's a huge other arena around like, the cycle that is so equally important that we have no clue about as women, how to nourish, how to take care of that, how to be in those moments. Also just understanding what does it mean to be feminine in general, and how to receive, how to, relax into who you are and kind of, flow, as opposed to wanting to control everything and plan every single minute of your day. How can you just like kind of, be in the moment and attract things to you? So it's been wonderful. It's been so empowering, but just so beautiful. So like, I felt like it was filling up something inside me that I've been longing for, but I didn't realize it until then, So then once I started studying and learning about cycle syncing and practicing it, I realized how it's connecting me to my body and how important that is as a woman. Respecting the different cycles, what to do in the different phases. So we have four phases of the cycle. It's not only the menstruation part, that's 1 out of 4. So how to behave, like what should I be doing in the different phases? Like what should I be doing when I have my cycle, my menstruation? what should I be doing when I'm ovulating? Like, you know, we always associate ovulation with, okay, it's fertility, it's the right time to like, you know, if you have a husband or partner to be active. Like there's other things around that as well. It's not just about having babies. So yeah, it's been very enlightening, and I like to share on the topic purely because I feel like it can change a woman's life and perspective if she can come into her body and understand this part of herself, remove the shame, remove the dirty feelings around it. You know, society has kind of injected these really and maybe misguided feelings and emotions, thoughts around menstruation in general. Like, you know, so kind of breaking through that and understanding what does it mean for you, how to honor it as opposed to, you know, being annoyed by it. Because I think all of us have had our moments where we're just like, I don't want to deal with this. Yeah. It's like you feel horrible or whatever. Just like you kind of want to just like brush it under the rug and get over it, then kind of sit with it, you know, so and understand, why am I having this? You know, why do I feel this? Because all of us get irritated, frustrated, like all those like heavy stuff that you dealt with all month is like coming out in one go, and everyone around you is like, oh my god, okay, she's got her period, let me like hide
a few days.
Yeah. So yeah, it was more about me, and then as I dug deeper into that, I'm like, okay, this is really interesting, and I think women should know about this. So whenever I have the chance to share, even though it's not my main focus in terms of, you know, the wellness aspect right now, but definitely for me, I always integrate holistic practices in everything I do. And then, you know, even when I'm an entrepreneur, I have my own business, so I use these tools and techniques in how I work also, and that's been transformative. For the first time, I think, in my life, I'm not chasing work. Work comes to me, and that's amazing.
And you're prioritizing yourself, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's a game changer. It's like a total game changer. So yeah. It's been great.
It was very interesting to understand the whole masculine energy and man in a woman's body and stuff like that. I think women tend to, or maybe it's a society, or it's the pressure that we feel, or we probably self-imbibe into ourselves. I'm you know, probably something to think about.
I think in general, we live in a very masculine world, and the work, especially the work environment, it's a 9 to 5. So men hormonally are 24-hour cycles, you know, so it's the 9 to 5, it's the hustle, it's the very goal-oriented energy, it's the, you know, let me get this done. That's all very masculine, and that's kind of the world we're in. And women have been pushed into feeling and thinking that we have to fit into that to be equal, to have our rights, you know. And I think the whole women's equality thing is also something quite, you know, I have my own opinion on that. I think we've maybe done ourselves worse than good. Yeah. But maybe we needed that to get to where we are today. But now there's a new level of understanding and learning women need to come back to. Because our grandmothers are the ones that, you know, shifted all that. I mean, there's still women in countries that are, you know, very oppressed, and they can't do anything and whatever. So anyway, I don't want to say it shouldn't have happened that way. But yeah, I think there's a lot of learning for women to understand how to exist as a woman, and that's okay. We don't need to match men to feel equal. We are more than equal and powerful in our own right. Yeah. But being a woman is your power, and not being a man. So that was like my enlightening moment.
Well said. I think the whole rushing women syndrome is that comes into my head. Where women are always rushing to be, you know, doing 20,000 things in a day, and then always want to be number one, and they kind of self-judge each other and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think when the whole menstrual cycle syncing works, where you need to understand when to slow this down, and then you know what you need to do at which phase of your cycle.
Definitely. So, I mean, maybe I can expand a bit on what that all means. So, of course, all of us, you know, any city life is hectic, it's busy. I mean, I have kids, I work. I mean, a lot of us are in that situation as women and as mothers. And even if you're not, you know, you have a career, there's a lot that comes with that. So it's impossible to say like, oh, you know, just see how you feel that day. And, you know, we always have a never-ending list. What's more important is to keep the bigger picture in mind. So for us, hormonally, we operate in a 28-day cycle. So it's roughly 4 weeks. And we all know by now that we should be getting our period every 28 days, roughly, give or take. And the other 3 weeks are all other hormonal phases that happen every month.
Yeah.
So when we break it down, so basically, if you imagine like a circle, so the starting and stopping points are like where the hormones are the quietest, is during the cycle. That's when you release the lining of the uterus. That's when you have the blood flow. This is a time to rest. This is a time just to be by yourself as much as you can. It's a very highly intuitive, creative time for women. In the olden days, or let's say going back into history, especially the Native American cultures, they would have tents for women to go and retreat. For during the time of their menstrual cycle. They would have the elder women come and take care of them, feed them, just whatever they need, so that everything is off their plate and they can just be with themselves. They would actually come together in the tent, and they would receive messages for the tribe. So they would come back after they're done, and then they would give messages like what they received for the tribe. It's like, that's so cool, like when you think about it. It's so beautiful, and it makes a lot of sense. Because you're purging in that time, you're letting go. So for us, like men, they have the daily cycles, so they're able maybe to let go and release like daily, like they have their ways that they do that.
Lucky guys.
Yeah. For us, we kind of have this container that we're in where we take on everything that's happening in that month, and then we release it in a way that it's quite beautiful, actually, if you embrace it. Because when you kind of take a different perspective on it, you feel it, and you kind of, okay, that makes sense. Like, okay, I'm feeling angry, or this is coming up. Because a lot of the times things come up in those moments that it doesn't make sense, you know. It's like, why am I feeling angry about this? Or like someone can tell you like the littlest thing and you explode, you know. It doesn't make sense. But if you think about it, like those are the things that you've been hanging on to, maybe not only that month, but like years. And you can just like be with yourself and let that go and just process it and like be in the moment. So as much as you can, at least to have that first day on your own, the better, you know. Even if it means having a sick day or whatever. Like a lot of women say, oh, Mariam, I cannot do that. I'm like, yes, you can. You can find a way. At least for that one day. If you can have that whole time as like, let's say 3, 5, 7 days, I mean, as long as you can, even better. Not everyone has that opportunity. I get it. So resting is key, because that's how you're regenerating everything, what's to come for the month ahead. And women who do not rest, they keep going and going and going. This is where the burnout happens. This is where they feel so drained. They feel like, you know, fog. They get sick, you know, and eventually if you keep going like that, you get disease. And then perimenopause is disaster. Menopause is even worse. So it's all linked together. So the more you can take care of yourself now, the better for you in the future, especially when your body's going to be going through a lot of changes, you know. So resting on the cycle, your actual menstruation, is step one. After that, you start moving into the follicular phase. So you start getting more energy again. Okay, you're moving towards ovulation. So ovulation is the mid of the cycle. That's when you ovulate, and that's your most energetic time. So that's when you're feeling your best. That's when you're looking your best, and energetically you're the most attractive. And you feel it also, you know. You feel good. You're like, oh yeah, my skin is glowing. You know, you feel it. And this is the best time in your personal life or your work life is to plan the big things, you know. So you can start building towards that through the follicular phase. You start planning what's happening next. Ovulation, mid-cycle, is when you do the big things. Big contracts, big events, big social opportunities, meetings, like where you need to really put yourself out there. That's the best time. Because that's when things are going to flow the best for you. It's going to just feel aligned. And it's not just taking on anything that comes to you. It's like you got to feel it as well. Like it's got to be aligned with who you are and what you're doing and all that. And so that's like a peak time. So for me as a business owner, I do my best to plan my bigger things around it. Like sometimes it's not 100% possible. Yes, I agree. But if I have my own business, I can plan, you know, from my side as much as I can. And I think that's the benefit. There was a reason why I chose to build my own business, for this reason, so I can create my own schedule and it's quite powerful. So lots of beautiful things will happen if you kind of follow that flow. Then once you pass ovulation and you start going into the luteal phase back to your cycle, this is when you need to wind down. You can start, going through what took place in the month, seeing what worked, what didn't, sort of reviewing everything. Okay. And then you come back and you need to get more quiet towards your menstruation again. So it's this beautiful cycle that you go through. And sometimes life is so busy, you don't necessarily kind of get to feel it like completely every day, but there's ways to keep track of that. I mean, it can be as simple as having a diary. There are some charts out there online. I mean, there's a lot of different resources, and for me, I've kind of taken from lots of different things. But there's a way to keep track. So keeping track is really interesting because you can see, like, understand how you're feeling that day, what's going on with your cycle that day, what happened in your life that day, and you'll see how there's like an alignment and flow. Like, it makes a lot of sense. But keeping track of it at the beginning is key to kind of have that top level awareness or like perspective. Otherwise, you get caught up in the daily stuff.
And in what phase actually I am.
Yeah, and then you just like lose track completely. And what's even more interesting is our cycles are aligned with the moon. So the moon is 28-day cycle as well. And so ovulation is usually associated with the full moon. And then your menstruation is associated with the new moon. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Like even my cycle kind of flips around. But when it does come, let's say when I do have my menstruation on the full moon, it's quite intense and it's kind of crazy, what I have to go through emotionally. There are ways to sync it, but then, sometimes it will work itself out as well. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but that's an interesting point. So for those of you who are into meditation, it's a really good idea to, sync with the moon, do some meditations on the new moon, totally full moon, because it kind of aligns with you energetically as a woman anyway. So it's quite powerful as well.
Okay. Yeah. So like just talking about the whole cycle and stuff like that. Now, as menopause, when women start going through menopause, the cycle's slightly more irregular. Yeah. Because you might end up having a 24-day cycle, or even it might go longer, like 30, 32. How do women during this phase do the cycle syncing? Yeah. Is it again through noting down and how you feel and stuff like that, or does it work in a different way?
Well, I haven't experienced that yet, but from what I understand, cycle syncing with the moon itself is probably the best way to do it. Because you will find that women who have stopped menstruating completely, once they start syncing with the moon, in terms of just keeping track of like what's happening with the moon and them, how are they feeling, and like it's kind of like, the cycle is still there, but it's in a different way. They found some positive benefits for that. But I think there is a phase in between where, it's quite erratic and, irregular. So doing the best you can to kind of understand where you are, because I think generally it's still happening, like in that way, but maybe it's a bit longer, it's a bit shorter. But I think it will be less erratic if you do this beforehand. So this is why I like to share with women of all ages, because if you can start earlier and be aware of this earlier, then I feel like, you can support yourself in a much better way when it does happen. There are certain foods that you can eat to supplement all of that. There are different teas. So like there's even a lady I found, she's based in New York, where she creates these tea blends for all the phases of the cycle. So you can drink that during each phase and be supported hormonally. So there's ways to do it, but is it a rocket? Is it science? I don't know yet. Like, I think it really depends on the other factors that are what's going on in your life and what you choose to kind of, how aware are you of your body? How are you supporting yourself in other ways, like mentally, emotionally? There's a lot of feminine practices that can be done as well to connect you into your feminine energy. So I feel like all that together supports you through that, It's not only the cycle syncing on its own. Yeah. But I feel like it's a good start. Yeah.
No, like from the time I understood and learned a little bit about cycle syncing, the one thing that I try to do as part of my lifestyle is to, I do a lot of intermittent fasting. I'm a big believer in intermittent fasting. And what I try to teach women also, or during my whole coaching session, is to actually do your fasting according to your cycle. Because like you're saying, the phases are there where you are at peak and you're at low and stuff like that. It's exactly the same way our body burns fat or, uses the energy that's within. So it's good to do your cycle syncing along with the right way of intermittent fasting, which actually can make a lot of difference, because as women start going through menopause or perimenopause phase, your fat burning ability or your metabolism actually comes down.
I figured that out the very
So I always tell people to do the intermittent. They're like, but I'm not seeing any difference. It's actually, if you do the same, which is a lot of people do the 16 hours fasting and 8 hours eating window, your body gets used to it. So then you do a lot of cycle syncing with the fasting cycles, and actually people see a lot of benefit.
That's interesting. So do you change the number of hours you're fasting depending on the phase you're in?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so you actually don't fast during your menstrual cycle, because your body at that time is not, it wants to eat the food. And of course, I'm not asking people to go eat a McDonald's Happy Meal and, be happy with it.
You need like a hearty meal.
Meal, healthy, but don't fast and, don't trouble your body. It's already going through a lot of change. So, and then start gradually increasing your fasting cycle and like do proper like 24 hours, 36-hour fast during your, luteal phase. I mean, you're during your ovulation phase, which is where you're like, the body's ready to take all that stuff up and ready to use the, ketones in the body and stuff like that. And so, but mixing and matching, very important. And then it works.
That's amazing. I think even fitness, because now recently I've started strength training. I've been a very avid yoga practitioner most of my life, which is always good, but I feel like now, since I'm in my 40s, I'm like, okay, something's happening here. Things are changing. I need to push my physical fitness now. So I have a great coach, but I found that it's been like, I don't know, 6 weeks or more now. And I've been pushing a lot, which is great. I can see transformation in my body. But also I'm feeling like, okay, I had to calm down a little bit, because I felt like I'm pushing too much. And then my body was telling me, Mariam, you're going to chill out a bit. What's happening? So it's a combination of integrating that into everything you're doing, really, because I think that, I think there are some coaches out there, fitness coaches, who integrate, that into what they're doing. And that's very powerful, because you need to listen to the different phases and do what you need to do in the different phases.
Exactly.
We are not like men where we can do the same thing every day. And,
I think even if you do it, you'll not see the change, because, your body doesn't burn fat the way.
True. And then you also kind of get burned out in a way, so it's good to keep that in mind. So it's like nutrition, fitness, fasting, even the kinds of supplements or teas you can be drinking, it's all impacted by the different phases. So once you start getting into it, it's just like this magical realm has opened, and it's very fascinating. It's a very beautiful journey as well.
Yeah. So in terms of, you spoke about how you use cycle syncing to influence your productivity and work habits. Like you said, you ask women to take a sick leave if possible on a day, or the first day of their cycle. What do you think should be a change in the corporate world, where they actually give menstrual leave, like an approved leave for women to take? You think that's something that corporate should approach, or would it be not used correctly?
I think some companies have already started. I mean, even here in the UAE, there's a few, and a lot of them are women-led companies, because they realize that it's something that should be offered. I think every single company or anyone who's working in corporate, you have access to sick days, and it's your right, how you're going to use those. I think that, if you're not sick in that time, but your body needs to rest, And I think that if you're not ready to take care of yourself in that way, then you're always going to find excuses, and no one else is going to do that for you. So you got to be clear in your mind that I'm doing this for me, this is for my long-term health. And I believe that if you do this regularly and rest in that moment, in those times, you'll see the benefits of overall, you're not as sick. You'll be less sick, you may be less stressed out, even you'll find yourself in a healthier more energetic space, because when you work, you got to be able to maintain your energy over extended amounts of time, and especially when there's busy phases and whatever. So it's smarter to do that than to give into like, oh, I should never be sick kind of thing.
It's like, oh, I'm always strong. I'm there for all meetings and stuff like that.
It's just one day. And the worst case scenario, if there's something super important that you need to be online for, okay, I'll be online for that call and that's it. Whatever. You give and take. Yeah. If you can disconnect completely, even better.
Yeah, like prioritize yourself, because
exactly
for you,
it's you. You have to. That's a part of the self-love. Like no one's gonna do that for you.
Yeah. True. I think women with the whole judging, they self-judge so much.
Yeah, you gotta let it go.
What are some common challenges people face? When they're trying to sync with their cycle. Like, is it lack of knowledge, resources, or something else that might stop them, or there's a barrier for them to?
Well, I mean, most of the women that I have introduced to the topic, they kind of have, it's nice. It's actually amazing because they already have some kind of awareness about, we've heard of it. So what's great is like now people are hearing about cycle syncing. Maybe they don't know the ins and outs of it, or they're not doing it regularly, but they have some idea that there's a way to sync, and it's interesting. Like I feel like as women, our body knows that it's something interesting for us and important. Challenges are, which most of us face, is like, I'm very busy. Like it's another thing I need to keep track of. There's some apps out there that can keep track of it for you, so you can look into those. I think when there's a will, there's a way. Like, I mean, it's just about prioritizing your self-care, and that as a woman is related to your hormonal cycle, your cycle.
Yeah.
Without taking care of that cycle, then nothing else is going to be taken care of in the best way. So maybe it's like, oh, but I go to the gym. Okay, great. But do you know like where you are at your cycle? Like a lot of women are not keeping track, especially birth control interferes with this. So I think this is a challenge maybe, because that's just making your body believe that it's pregnant for all that time, hormonally. And then, once you stop the pill, then it's you bleed, so that's very confusing for the body. And I've had friends that have had enormous difficulty. Once they stop, they didn't get their period for like months and months. So I'm not against birth control, but I would like women to just research this a little bit and maybe find me other ways that they can manage that aspect.
Okay.
Because your hormones need to go through the cycle. If you're stopping it or changing it or having like a false chemical in the body that's changing things and unnaturally, it can have a detrimental effect as well, So that's maybe a challenge. But everything else, it's just more of like, embracing it. I think more and more people are embracing a more wellness-oriented lifestyle. They understand that it has a long-term benefit and impact. A lot of corporates also are kind of embracing that in different ways as well. So also like sharing this with like-minded people. I think my friends also keep me on track. I did a session with a good friend to work on some, things that I've been going through. So it's like keeping like-minded people around you that can support you in the process. But most importantly, it's just like having those few minutes of the day for you. So I think like that's something I've really had to push myself to do. So a lot of it could be like, even if it's something as simple as a journal, there's some charts that you can do where you just easily write in, where you're at, the date, how you're feeling, like just having those few moments can be so transformative, but it's like you got to start somewhere,
Take the first step.
Yeah.
True. Are there any misconceptions people have when they say, cycle syncing? What do people generally think of, and or do they think it's a very complicated term and stuff like that?
Well, I'm not sure. So far, everyone I've shared with, they kind of get it, but I think maybe it could be misunderstood just for like pregnancy only. But I mean, I'm sure it can support in the fertility aspect, because if you're syncing with your cycle and you're doing everything you need for your body in those phases, then, it could really support in your fertility. I think a lot of women have issues with it more and more. It's increasing,
Absolutely.
By the day, which it's quite shocking. But I think that's a big factor. A lot of women are in their masculine, and their body knows it. And they're like, okay, well, we're not ready to have a baby. So maybe that could be supporting that. But it's not just for having babies, or like, ovulation has so many other benefits as well. But I think that, yeah, I mean, that maybe that's some misconception, but so far women are getting it. I think we're very switched on. We know that our bodies are looking for something more that's made for women, and it's not just a one size fits all, because a lot of the research, the health research, the medical research is done on men.
Yeah, I know.
And I was like so shocked, like till this day and age, 2024, most of the research is done on men, and they're just like generalizing across the board. Like women's bodies are so different. Like, and even sometimes I have to flag it to my coach as well, my fitness coach. He's a guy, he's amazing, but it's like, just remember, I'm a woman, I have phases, and it's like, yes, I know, I got but they don't get it completely because it's different for them. So I think that's got to change, for sure. Yeah,
totally. Oh, very nice. What advice would you give someone who's new to menstrual cycle syncing?
Okay, so I have 2 girls. I have 2 daughters. And I think a part of my giving back to them as a mom is making sure they understand this concept. So if you're a mom, it would be great if you can share this with your girls early on, so they understand it's not only about just their period. There's a whole cycle that they need to take care of, because kids in general, especially teenagers, they like to eat a lot of sugary food. They like junk. But this impacts their hormones. They have difficulty. Maybe they can't focus at school. Maybe they sleep so much. You need to help them kind of have a balanced life as much as possible. I know it's like, can't force them. Trust me, I've learned the hard way. You can't force a preteen or a teenager to do anything. But obviously you are the role model, right? So if they see you do it and they see you looking and feeling good, then obviously they feel like subconsciously it's like clicking for them. What was the question again?
No, I said in case when someone's new, so what's your advice in terms of starting?
I think educating yourself. So for me, I always have to research everything for myself. So even if I go see a doctor who's like great at what they do, maybe they've achieved so much in their field, but I'm still gonna ask questions. I still want to know how. I want to know why. How is it impacting me? What is the long-term effect of this? So I think like in general, like it's a nice practice to want to educate yourself instead of just taking it from someone and being like, that's a fact, research. That's been like a huge part of my journey. And then what else? Like, just being in environments where you can learn more about it in different ways. I think learning about the feminine principles and how to activate that in your body is also very fascinating, because I think there's also a misconception that being feminine is just being sensual. I mean, that's one part. Yeah. But there's so many aspects of being feminine, like being soft, being creative, just receiving. Dancing is also a really nice way to activate the feminine energy. Like there's things you can do to kind of complement that work of the psychosyncing and just get to know yourself more as a woman. It's very empowering, and there's sort of less pressure to kind of exist in the masculine world. Plus, for women who are having issues with relationships, like I have friends till now, so I'm 41, they're close in age, similar age, they can't find partners. And if you analyze their life, they are very masculine women, very masculine. Like, so they work, they make all the money they need, they solve all their problems, they travel alone, they do whatever they want, they support their families, which is amazing. It's beautiful. Like, I love that for women. And I'm in a similar situation where I take care of a lot of my things, but they're struggling in the fact they can't be feminine. They don't know even like how to be it. So I know for a fact if they can just come into their feminine a bit more, it doesn't mean letting go of all that they've achieved. They can invite a masculine partner into their world. So it's also really interesting for relationships. So I've also been working on that for myself, because I wanted to make sure for whoever's coming in next that I can be feminine and I can invite a masculine partner we can support each other on our journeys, So it's also really fascinating.
That is so wonderful. Like I think
some light bulbs are going off.
I can kind of relate a lot to what you said. I think I also probably have, I'm probably more on the masculine energy side. I also was a tomboy when I was brought up. I was the boy of the house. Yeah. I was a chef. I wanted to prove myself in the men-ruled industry. Yeah. Stuff like that. I've always been pushing myself. I think I'm very competitive. I think all of that probably is just the overpowering masculine energy. But I always thought that probably the feminine energy is more vulnerable, and I don't want that vulnerability aspect. Maybe that's why I was fighting it, but it's very good to understand this side. Like, again, I think every time I speak to you, I learn something new. And it's very exciting.
I mean, I'm learning from you as well. But yeah, I think it's similar for me. So for me as a girl, I saw that being a woman was weak, like a weakness, because I saw it around me in different ways. So I think me pushing into my masculine was a way for me to be on the same level of the men in my family and be like, no, I can make my own decisions. I can be free. I can be independent. And so maybe I needed to go through all that to understand myself now, but I know where it came from. I know where it came from for sure. So, I mean, I think there's a strength in being feminine, but it doesn't mean it has to be a weakness. So that's like a belief that can be shifted. It's very powerful, but you can have boundaries. So the boundaries is a big thing. That's a whole other podcast.
Oh no, it's so exciting. I don't know. I can't explain what's happening in my head.
Oh,
at the
great,
moment,
amazing.
but, it's great. Where can our listeners, if they want to find more information about, the wellness side of your work or any other resources that you think, will benefit them, where can they? How can they
can
find
definitely find me on Instagram. It's Mariam is my handle. I think for the resources, I would prefer to share like specific things depending on the situation, because I feel like there's not one resource that would cover everything. So if anyone wants more information, they can DM me and I can share something. And I'm happy to share a few things with you if you want to share with your listeners as well.
Sure.
There's some charts. I mean, there's apps. There's different things that can support, but depending on the situation you're in. So yeah, but like Google is amazing. Research, just type in cycle syncing and you'll start to get tons of information. And you got to see what resonates with you as well, and where you're at in your phase in womanhood. So that's important as well.
Yeah, and embrace your womanhood.
Yeah, I think that, more and more women are shifting into this space where it's okay to be a woman and they feel safe being a woman. Yeah. So that's another thing that has shifted over the last few years. But I think we've gone through a journey because we had to, and it's just now to come back into embracing being a woman, but also giving space for our men. I feel like what's been happening is we're pushing the men away, and that's where the struggle is a lot in the dynamic of relationships. So I'm going to be a woman in the best way, and I'm giving you space to be a man in the best way. Yeah. But we don't need to fight to be equal, because we're different and we're both beautiful, but we complement each other. So that's where I'm at now.
Very nice. That's a wrap for today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. I totally loved it. I've got a lot of takeaways from this episode. And thank you, Mariam, for sharing your wisdom and, the lovely information that you've given us about the whole feminine energy.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All of us have to start tapping into that feminine energy. But before we go, I've got a special segment in this podcast. Yeah. The F podcast focuses 99% of the conversation around women and for women. Yeah. Right. But we know that men are a part of this journey too. Can you leave our listeners with your 1% advice for the men in our lives? What can men do better to understand what women are going through, and how can they support us through this journey?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting for me to also understand that, because I've had my struggles with all that as well. I felt like, misunderstood in many ways. But I feel like men have their own struggles that they're going through, but we're not giving them the space or the time and energy to kind of share that as well. I think it's been about us and our rights, and I have my issues and you need to listen to me, and you need to support me, which is, of course, it should be the case. You should have men supporting and all that, and I think they do in their own way, but it's also giving them the space to feel comfortable, to feel accepted, to feel like they can be themselves, and that the support they show you can be also honored and respected. So it goes two ways. So that's what I've learned, is that it's a two-way street, and that we can maybe create more space for the men to feel safe to share as well, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
But what's your 1% to the men? Imagine
To the
you're
men.
talking to a man
Okay. About
What-
women?
about how they can support women during the whole menopausal
Okay.
journey.
I think it's support is really what we're looking for, is not for them to understand 100%. It's just like maybe listen. And when we do share, you know, just go with the roller coaster of emotion that we have. Listen to us, and just sometimes it's just like sit next to me and just be with me. Like, it doesn't have to be anything profound. It's just like, I want to know that you're here and that you care, and listen to me when I need some time to talk. That's it. I think it's very simple, actually.
That's just be there for me.
Yeah.
Just be there.
Yeah.
I don't need you to talk. I don't need to do anything. Just be there for me.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it depends on the context.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
you
the
know,
same.
just sometimes all you need, I think really in reality, sometimes all you need is to know that someone's there for you.
Yeah.
It's not about like what they're gonna say or how they're gonna do it or when and where. It's just like, just be with me and be there, you know? Yeah.
Nice.
It's a feeling more than like an action, you know? Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much for this. Yeah. Men, please be there for us. Yeah. Just be there. If you love this episode, please spread the news. Have your friends and family join the F Coach Menopause Wellness Tribe. That's the place where we support women with all the empowerment, the educational resources that they need, and most importantly, a sense of sisterhood. Stay tuned, and we have many more such exciting episodes coming up. Until then, menopause, why pause? Let's play.